So cool. All right. So I see a couple people are on, some familiar faces from some of the other stuff that we've had going on at Centercourt. So super excited to have you guys. This is Jay Milner's last of 3 great webinars. I've personally learned a great deal talking to him, as I always do. He's an educator that I just have a ton of respect for. So before I let him go, I want to just share with you guys just our 360 Instagram. This is really updated. You can see Jay's handsome face right there. My sons are knocking on the window at me. And there's my face right there. So this is a great place just to give us a follow, to stay updated with things that we have going on during the week. We are in the midst of planning and about to roll out and communicate our summer plans. So the thing that we really feel strongly about is giving kids the opportunity to preview a class, to have time to, if you're going into AP Calc, you're concerned about maybe your pre-calc situation, to take a really intensive course with a tremendous tutor who actually teaches that course at a really high level. So as you're a parent and you're winding into June and kind of thinking about the summer, definitely keep us in mind, because I think we're going to have some offerings that are going to be helpful. So I know that I see that Allie's on, who's our one of our big marketing gurus. Anything, Allie, to add, or I'm forgetting on any of that front?
No, I think you covered it all. As of right now, all of our summer stuff is online. And we have a couple great webinars starting up next week. But yeah, the Instagram account that Rob had showed you earlier is really just the best place to get all the updated information and find out when classes are almost full and stuff like that. So definitely give us a follow there. And yeah. Great.
So without further ado, I want to introduce Jason Milner. Jay is the director of the Engineering Success Alliance, which is a kind of a school within the school at Bucknell, where he mentors engineering students. And if you know Bucknell, you know that they have a top engineering program really in the world. But Jay also has high school teaching experience, high school coaching experience. So he really knows both kind of what it takes to be successful at a high level, math and science in college, and also in a competitive high school situation. So he's done a lot of great stuff in terms of study skills, how to think, how to succeed in some of these competitive environments. So excited to hear what he has to say about being who you are, building your brand, and without further ado, Jay, great to have you.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for definitely thanks for having me. Thanks for the kind words. Thanks for allowing me to do this. This is my 3rd week now. You see, I'm going to share this. As Rob said, I'm the director of the Engineering Success Alliance here at Bucknell University. This is my 7th year with the program. The program is 10 years old, and my first year was the first graduating class, and it's been a very entertaining journey, and I've learned a lot, and it's been a great place to build my career here with a great group of students. And a little bit about the Engineering Success Alliance is you can take a second, read a little bit about it, what we're about here. We actually just yesterday picked our new class. This might be the most challenging class we're ever going to have, depending on how much we end up being able to do over the summer and how much we end up being able to do in pre-orientation and things like that. But yeah, we try to draw from high schools and from demographic groups that we think might be at risk for leaving the engineering major. And while Bucknell and a lot of higher education doesn't like to talk about sort of barrier courses or weed out courses anymore. We don't like that kind of terminology. I do try to get the students through some of those early math and science courses so that they can get into their major and maybe start to find their footing, and maybe get over some of the early courses that are difficult, and maybe they don't have the preparation that some of their peers coming in might have. Here it's quickly again. I'm just going to go through this in case some of the people haven't been here. Just a little bit about the program. It might be interesting to know that these opportunities are out there for people who are getting ready to head into university. We have a summer bridge program, which is really where we start to build our community. Obviously, I provide a lot of academic support, but I get a lot of academic support from the upper class students and get a lot of faculty support. We try to incorporate support from the family and again, university through from administrators, through faculty and staff. Everyone is really very supportive of this program. Then we have a lot of connects now. As I said, this program is 10 years old now, so we're starting to get a lot of people out in industry or in higher ed who can maybe take some of the students from the program and take them under their wing. So we're building a pretty good alumni network at this point. This is some quick shots idea of what it looks like for us when we do our pre-orientation program. That's called Backstage Bucknell. And here's some of the community building we do with some various events and things we do throughout the year. And one of our big events for our alumni and for our program is our homecoming brunch, Saturday of homecoming. This is a picture of one of the recent homecomings with basically the whole program all there all at once. And down below are a couple little brag points of things that we've accomplished and the students have accomplished just in one particular given year. Today I want to talk though about sort of branding and thinking along lines of branding yourself, creating a personal brand or a niche brand for yourself. This all sort of stems from some of the professional development I do with students, particularly some of the students who are getting ready to start interviewing and moving on to either a graduate school or into industry. But it's the same thing that I think you want to think about if you're looking to get start looking into colleges, or if you're trying to think about getting in from a middle school to a top tier high school, any of those things. I think this is a good way to look at yourself and sort of come up with a way to present yourself. So these are our goals for the day. We're going to talk about each of these different things, and start with the first one. One thing we talk about is sort of a brand or a niche brand. What that word means, if people aren't familiar, niche, right, is comfortable or suitable position in life or employment. I have a couple little cartoons there, and then even the second one as an adjective denoting or relating to products, services, or interests that appeal to a small specialized section of the population. You might think, well, I don't want to appeal to a small section. I want to appeal to a larger group. But really, that's what we're all looking for is to find the job, the school that's right for both parties, where that coach or that job or that school or whatever is looking for someone like you, and you're looking for a situation like what they're offering. So. Things to think about when we're talking about sort of branding and niche branding. These are some of the reasons why we might want to focus on them. If we're not intentional about developing that brand identity, we can miss out on ways to improve our skills. We might not, sort of be able to see what might be best for us and moving forward. It's definitely, like I said, one of the keys for why I've focused on this is trying to help students understand best how to sell themselves. And again, thinking of your time in school, how can you market yourself for those next steps, whether it's in school or whether it's in school trying to look towards high school or college. And then this is just a way to remain competitive and desirable, in an ever-changing world and ever-changing marketplace. So basically, the way you want to think of it is, how do you want employers or schools to see you when they look at your resume or your application? What do you want them to see? You want to just have a big list or a big group of things you've done, or do you want to sort of really think about how you want to present yourself? So that's sort of what it means to find a niche brand or create a niche, and why it matters. So one thing that I often say to students is, if you say you love it, then you have to love it. And an example of that, might be, if you say that you're into robotics, you should have things on your resume, or have things on your application that involve, robotics club or robotics activities or a camp or competitions or things like that. If you're interested in possibly going into, again, I'm speaking a lot of times to engineering students. So some students might want to go into engineering design or engineering, sort of more of a hands-on approach to engineering. Others might want to get into engineering management. If students trying to get into something like engineering management, do they have externships in the winter? Did they get involved with an industry mentor? Did they take advantage of all kinds of internship opportunities, and really focus on some of those things that they claim to be interested in? If you say that you're interested in graduate school, have you done a lot of research? Have you worked with professors? Have you started to build that sort of foundation? So if you're going to say to somebody that this is something that you're really interested in, it's hard to backfill, right? It's hard to go back and try to pretend you did some of those things. You better have some of those things on your resume, on your application, etc. That applies also to the student athlete. I know Centercourt is for student athletes to a large extent, not exclusively. Are you doing those extra things? Are you going to the extra practices? Are you going to the camps, obviously? Are you going to skill sessions? Anything like that. So, we always talk about, being well-rounded. That is important, but your priorities will show when somebody who has some level of savvy or some level of knowledge of what's out there, sees your resume or your application. So, on the left, we see people doing competitions and coding competitions and robotics and design competitions and things like that. And then on the right, we have the students who are spending most of their time in the dorm room playing video games and etc. Not that all that's bad, but so a lot of times I talk to students about thinking about their free time. We're going to talk about some more about that later. But what does a typical weekend look like? What does a Friday night look like? What does a Saturday night look like? A lot of students in an engineering education or a very difficult major in college, your week is going to be really packed with classes. Very, very packed with classes. So the weekend can't be 100% blow off time. The weekend is when you have to get caught up and get ready for the next week. So what are you doing with that time? In a larger sense, and this is something students want to start thinking about now, especially as the school year is winding down. What are you doing with your breaks? What are you doing with time, more than a week or so? Did you get involved with internships, externships? Are you showing a work ethic? Did you do research? Are you involved with, athletics? Are you involved with other extracurriculars? Things like that.
Hey, Jay, can I ask you a question real quick?
Surely.
So just to hit on this idea of the internships and externships, one thing that I've noticed in the last couple years working in education, that the pressure, we're talking, I think, to mostly high school students, but the pressure to get into these internships, externships earlier than even in college has things that we're seeing in our school a little bit. I don't know in terms of timeline or what you're seeing as advisable, that like when I went to school, it was like, all right, well, maybe you get an internship, going into your senior year of college, and that'll work out. And now this seems to be the very different picture. So I don't know if you could kind of speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a bit of keeping up with the Joneses that's going on with a lot of these things.
Sure.
Trying to stay ahead of the curve. But I would say, generally speaking, the students that I'm working with, if you find something after your first year, I would say that that's sort of gravy. If you get something after your first year, that's great, but I wouldn't. It's not the end of the world if after your first year you're still scooping ice cream or something like that. I think you should be doing something to show that you have a work ethic, or being involved in other things, or sports, or things like that. But definitely after your sophomore year, I would think that you would want to be doing something that's moving you closer towards whatever your goal is, whether that's graduate school, or whether that's going into industry. So, and then certainly after your junior year, because frankly, a lot of students after their junior year get internships leading into their senior year that can actually turn into job offers, depending on what field they're in, and when hiring occurs. If big companies are going to be hiring in the fall for the next summer, getting something that summer before might lead, if you finish up your internship in August, and maybe by September they're looking to start hiring, a month later you might be getting a phone call or getting an offer. So definitely after junior year, I would say you need to have something. If not, you're behind. By sophomore year, I think you would like to, and after first year, that's great, but I don't think it puts you behind at all. Certainly in high school level, I think if you're showing a desire, to work and to be involved with some things that are in your area of interest, if you get anything at that point, I think you're probably pretty happy, but I don't think it's going to put you behind.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah. But you should be trying to do something to move forward in the summer, whether that's, improve your skills, or learn a new programming language, or learn, learn a new language in general, or, whether it's reading, books to help you move forward, something like that. So here's some ideas, right? When it comes to the things that are your key aspects of who you are. What it is that you hope to be doing later in life, which, might take some people some time to figure out, but are there things you could be doing to get more involved in your major? I know here at Bucknell, there are professional organizations for all the majors in engineering. There's Society of Civil Engineers, Society of Mechanical Engineers, etc. Are there things like that you could be doing to get more involved? Are there some of those programming competitions, design competitions, things like that? Are there clubs and activities you should be involved with on campus that you're not? And then as you start getting into junior and senior year, can you be taking on a leadership role? Can you be making those things? Can you be promoting those things in a broader aspect across campus? Could you make it a better organization than it was when you joined it? So in general, like I said, if someone's looking at your resume or looking at your application, if you say you love it, does it show? So that's that aspect. And then beyond your major, obviously I'm preaching to the choir here because a lot of people obviously are student athletes. So beyond just what it is you think you might want to do for a living, everyone here is probably largely involved with a lot of other things. But so yeah, you don't want to just be 100% involved in your major. Burnout is real, and you do want to be somewhat well-rounded. So what are some of the things outside of just your major that you can do? You don't want to have that be the only thing about you that people see. Somebody here, one of my mentors here at Bucknell, always tells students the first week of classes that with good time management, you can do more than your major, and you should, right? No, you're not going to have a broadly successful college career, college 4 years, if the only thing you did was sit in the lab and work on your major. You're going to want to get out, obviously, and experience everything that's there for you. So here, here's some ideas. Obviously, all of you, again, probably are well aware of these types of opportunities, whether it's sports, whether it's intramural sports, whether it's student government, band, plays and musicals, things like that, volunteer work. These are, great opportunities, things to do. One thing I talk to the students about a lot is this idea of what we call like high value free time. Here's a guy, this is a little self-help-ish, but this guy wrote a book, Balance Me, but he talks a little bit about the difference between high value and low value activities. High value activities, as you can read here, move you closer to your goals. They're things that achieve balance for your 3 Ps. I think it's professional, personal, and physical, or something like that. These are things that produce positive gains, education, working with friends, family, coworkers, helping them out, giving of yourself, and exercise, diet, things that sort of help you recharge your battery. And then low value activities would be things that we're all well aware of, excessive social media, online gaming, watching television, things like that. So I like to talk to the students about those things because it's important for the students here who have a lot of work and a lot of time in the classroom to understand that by engaging in some of the low value activities that just sort of happen, they might be robbing themselves of an opportunity to engage in some of the high value activities. So if somebody tells me, I love ultimate Frisbee, I know it's not gonna be the thing that's gonna, take me anywhere in life, but I really love ultimate Frisbee. And there's practices on Saturdays, but I just have way too much physics and way too much mechanics to work on the weekends, and I can't do it. And I say, well, wait a second. Didn't you tell me that every time you go back to the dorm, you end up, spending an hour just sitting around in the common room, talking with some people and stuff like that? If you focus, I try to frame it inside the aspect of time management. If you're using some of that free time that you do have in your schedule and you're just letting it get wasted away with some of these low value activities, you're robbing yourself of that activity, that the one thing that you say does really recharge your battery. That one thing that you said, if I could only do that, I think I'd be able to get through the week and not be, constantly feeling like I'm missing out, or constantly feel like my whole college career is here in the classroom. You can do it with time management and with focusing like that on what are the things that are going to help you build your brand, what are the things that are going to help you build your story. So again, these are some of the same similar questions you might have asked yourself based on your major or what you want to do with your life. But now these are, things maybe that aren't, central to your future or what you plan to do with your career. What are some of the other things you can do outside of that, that you might want to get involved in? What are some things that, are the things at your school that you could get involved in, or are the things at your school that don't exist currently that you think you would like to start yourself? Why not, why not try to create some things and think about how you would go about doing that. Who do you need to talk to? Who would you have to get an okay from? So these are other ways to think about how you might want to create your brand. If your brand isn't out there yet, like I said, I didn't say it as finding your brand. Sometimes you have to create it. And then I think, like I said, the previous 3 things that we've talked about, I think all of this really comes down to where did I start thinking about this and how did I start phrasing, trying to frame this for students. It's based on things I hear when I talk to students who are getting ready to go to career fairs or thinking about going to a graduate school information session, or students who are on their way to their first big interview. So again, I come back to this slide. You know, what do you want people to see when they look at that? And if you take all these previous things, like I said, what is it you want to do with your free time? What is it you want to do with your major? How can you build your brand? How can you build your niche? If you do that, I think you can start to build what I would call sort of a narrative. If you look at any brand marketing outside of just talking about personal brands, if you look at a brand marketing in a bigger context with like businesses or products, they're always going to talk about a story or narrative. What is your story? What story are you trying to get people to see? So I just put this together real quick one day and showed that if you take some of those things that we just talked about, what is your brand? What is your niche? How are you spending your time? You can put together a really quick summary of who you are, a quick summary of what your story is. I'm thinking of a student currently who's going to be a senior. She's a civil engineer. I can fill in hers for her because I know her very well. It would say something like, I'm a civil engineering major with a strong interest in structures. In my time at school, I've taken advantage of opportunities to pursue this interest as I have frequently participated in research and plan to take part in an internship this summer. Over the summers, I was fortunate enough to work with Moriarty Construction and even took advantage of several winter and spring opportunities to do an externship with Clark Builders. In addition, I'm an avid player of the French horn. She is. Who never passes up an opportunity to prove my skills in this area. I've taken part in concert band for several years now and fill up my free time throughout the semester with practice, meetings, and games. So there's just an example of somebody I know. I'm just doing that off the top of my head, who if you focus and think about your brand and think about how you're going to use your free time and how you're going to utilize those things, that you can create a narrative for yourself. And the key for that is when I hear students talk to me, they say, you know, I'm going to this internship fair, I'm going to this career fair, I'm going to go up and introduce myself. I never know what to say. I never know what to say. Or I'm going to an interview and I never know what to say. And I always tell them the same thing. Just tell your story. Just tell your story. And if you're thinking about creating a brand, you're building that story. So when you can use your niche brand to tell your story in that interview, that cover letter, or that school essay, right? So somebody asks you a question, tell me about a time you took a leadership role. Now you're just thinking about those things that you do outside of your major, you know, whether it's a sport, whether it's student government, something like that. What part of my story involves, did I go from being a member of the National Society of Black Engineers to by my senior year, I was the president. You know, tell that part of your story. Tell me about a time you overcame adversity. Again, that should be something that should be built into some of those quality, high value time activities that you're doing, or some of the things you're doing in the classroom. What about our company made you apply, right? How does your brand intersect with their brand? What are they trying to do? And what do you think sets you apart from other applicants? Perfect opportunity to tell your story. You know, I come from, we have a lot of students from Los Angeles. I came from LA all the way out to a small school in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania. And, you know, it took me several years to get acquainted. But before I knew it, you know, I was a leader on campus, things like that. I think that, you know, in any sort of new environment, I can shine. So there's another example, right, of just using your story and using the brand you've created for yourself to make it very easy and quick to answer some questions you might see or might be asked when it comes to a cover letter or a school essay or something. Just finally, last quick thing, I just wanted to show you an example. One thing that I do with professional development, more than I'd like to, is I have a ton of students come up to me and say, hey, could you help me with my resume? I say, sure, let me see it. And it's a lot of times it's not in great shape. So then next thing I know, we spend several hours working on it. So if we look at, here are two students that I would say, I've gotten rid of any hopefully anything distinguishing here, but the person on the left was a sophomore civil engineer. The person on the right is a junior computer science and engineering engineer. Person on the left, right, we see the a lot of stuff with the civil engineering. We see stuff about doing a management program. We see some work ethic stuff. For 6 years, worked at the same place near her house. Got an internship with the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. Did volunteer work with Sisters of the Sacred Heart. And then we look at her leadership and involvement. Was involved with and a leader in Civil Engineering Honor Society, Society of Women Engineers, Society of Civil Engineers, and then was heavily involved with Catholic Campus Ministries. So here's a student that has a story, right? She came to school, focused on her major of civil engineering. In that, while she was here, she spent a lot of her free time building community inside the Catholic Campus Ministry and focusing on volunteer work inside of her faith. So there's an easy story for that person to tell when they go into an interview. I believe she is on her way to being a project manager for an engineering company outside of Washington, D.C. at the moment. Guy on the right is talks about a technical internship and as a researcher, talks about working inside of his department with as a teacher's assistant. Talks about helping other students as a teaching and learning center facilitator. Then there's some things inside of his fraternity. He was actually a mentor for my program, Engineering Success Alliance. He was a peer mentor for another group on campus. So here's a student who got involved with some technical aspects and computer science aspects. Did a bunch of different projects and activities inside that. And then outside of that, he did a lot of mentoring and teaching to other students. So there's another student who's got a lot of a story. I can kind of read his story right in his resume. And then finally, not to shame these students, but here are two other students. One's a senior mechanical engineer and one's a junior electrical engineer. Both of them have a lot of work experience, so they have a work ethic. They're here, in terms of taking very difficult courses on campus, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. But there's nothing in this resume that builds a brand. There's nothing in either one of these resumes that tells me what this student is, what they're about. There's no connectivity. There's no, like I said, niche or brand being built here. So these are two students that are going to have a harder time going in and sort of selling themselves to somebody because they don't really have a brand or an identity. And those are students that are going to struggle a little bit more in a whether it's an internship fair, career fair, job interview, something like that. There's nothing on here that sort of ties everything together for them. So that's all we really had today. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. But yeah, I just wanted to give you a heads up on some of these things that I talk to my students about. I think thinking in this way really does, as I mentioned before, it's hard to backfill. If you think about these things in advance, then it helps you plan how you want to build your high school career, your college career, your time with your sports, your athletics, your extracurriculars outside of that, and how you want to be able to go into some sort of industry interview, some sort of situation, and really be able to sell yourself because you know what it is you're selling.
Jay, this is awesome. Kind of left the best for last, I feel like, with some of this stuff. And interesting, I was working with some students with Centercourt on kind of a social media angle, and we're talking about personal branding as well. And I shared this Sheryl Sandberg paper, this thing that Sheryl Sandberg wrote. Sheryl Sandberg's a CFO or Chief Technology Officer at Facebook, yeah. One of the high up positions. And she sort of talked about like personal branding as a myth in some ways. And she said, brands are for like Crest and for, Jiffy and whatever. But the way you explained it, like, and if you Google personal branding, you'll get 1,000 responses. And it's, I think, a super intimidating thing for a 15 or 16-year-old kid to think about. Like, my brand, like, I'm just going to practice and school, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just trying to figure out who I am, like much less a brand. But that idea that it's just like a story and you're just kind of getting used to telling your story and telling your story through a resume, through social media, that at least for me clarifies like how to coach people through that thing, because that it's something you hear all the time. You know, you need a brand, but even that slide about like filling it, it's like Mad Libs, you know, like filling in the blanks. Like, it's really not. It doesn't have to be a super intimidating process for you to think about just who you are, what you want, where you've been, what you're passionate about.
Yeah, I just put together that paragraph pretty quickly one day, and just trying to show students how thinking in that way can create their story. So yeah, when I talk about a brand, which you might be talking sort of in a little bit of a different way than I am, but like I said, mostly what I'm trying to say is create a brand so that you can tell your story very easily, and you know what your own narrative is. In
a quick, you know, like the elevator pitch kind of concept. It's awesome. You should do this for a living. You're good at this. We have a few minutes. If anybody has any questions and you just want to unmute yourself or use the chat, sure, be happy to talk, expand on any topic, or any other questions that people have.
Everybody's ready for.
I have a question.
Great.
I have a question.
Sure.
What percentage would you say your brand is represented online as social media versus your substance behind that, where you don't necessarily feel you have to package and or put yourself out there? Like, your energy may very well be spent so much, right, creating the facade of the brand, and some of it may be very substantial, but I think it's just fascinating to me to get your input on that.
Yeah, I think probably, and I know Rob is somewhat of an expert on the social media aspect of it. I think probably social media plays a large part, maybe from high school to college. I think maybe from university to graduate school or university to industry, it might be, you know, you might want to focus more on your on what your resume looks like, and something I know we're focusing here at Bucknell on a lot these days, and I've been trying to get a lot of my students to do it, is sort of a combination of the two, like an e-portfolio. So especially, I think people think of portfolios when you're thinking about maybe sort of like an art degree or maybe architecture or something like that. But you know, I always tell the students that when you do a project, you know, make sure you take a lot of pictures of what you've done, you know, so you can help build that e-portfolio. When you do a coding assignment, you know, not only do you want to have access to that assignment and that project, you might want to write yourself a couple notes on what it was exactly that the project did. We have students who do a lot of things in MATLAB, or you do a SolidWorks project, which is like a, you know, computer-aided design thing. A lot of those things are great opportunities to build like an e-portfolio, or build something that when you submit your resume, you can have a link to that e-portfolio. So somebody can not only say, oh, well, I know how to do SolidWorks, or I know how to program in MATLAB. Again, I'm talking from students from an engineering perspective. I know how to do those things. That's one thing, but it's another thing if somebody can actually click on a link and see that you can do those. And somebody can actually see what you've accomplished.
Right.
So, so I think maybe something like an e-portfolio is an ability to use technology and social media to build something that's very finely crafted to what maybe somebody in industry or somebody at a graduate school level might want to see.
That's great.
Thank you.
It's very helpful.
And I would just add too, like, I think it's very easy to see when people are being genuine on social media. kids that really they love music. Like we had a student a couple years ago. Do you remember Peter Godart, Jay?
Mhm. Yeah.
So he super into music, and his college application, he had a digital portfolio as part of it that had a bunch of the music that he had created. Really talented kid. I think it was MIT or something like that he ended up going to. So I think, kids, I believe people are genuinely kids are interested in learning, kids are interested in this stuff. And so just to take that little extra time to document it, as Jay's talking about, to take the pictures, to maybe put it on online, to, I work with kids on creating a professional Twitter account, creating a LinkedIn account, just to take a little bit of that extra moment to make sure it's somewhere, so that it's just a quick link to be able to have that for future employers, things like that. So it is.
If I could just real quick, coming from an employer point of view, someone who works in marketing and social media and branding, Jason, what you said before about, if you love it, then love it, I think is so true. So coming from someone who is currently hiring, I like to look at the person's, the candidate's personal profiles, and see how active they are on social media, what they like to do with their accounts, because, when they give you examples of their work, you get paid to do that, to make sure that your work is professional and shows, what it should be showing. But when you have your own personal profiles that, you can tell that person enjoys social media, regardless of what it is that they're showing, it takes it to a whole completely different level. And that they genuinely enjoy social media and marketing and, that kind of.
That's a great point.
Yeah. I share with my kids that one of the first things that we do is, when you're hiring, one of the first things you do now is Google the applicant, right? I mean, and not just for the package stuff, as Ali was saying, but for, who are you really, all those personal accounts. So I think it is an increasingly relevant skill for colleges and, and the world of work. And that's a big, I think, push for us at Centercourt, is trying to get kids to think about that world, and even just being aware that it's important, and to prioritize it, and to plan, as Jay's saying, just to kind of have a plan for yourself as you're going into college, is, and that you have to come out of it with a story, with something that you can sell to some degree. You have a purpose for what you're doing. So other questions? Okay.
Everybody go hit those grills.
Yeah. Right. So, as we said at the outset, so a couple of things just as we close. We're very excited about our summer programming. We have, SAT, ACT, a lot of college prep, college applications, college essays, but also, the preview courses, things of that nature, to really kind of help you get going. We're also offering internships through Centercourt for the first time. So if, again, that idea of getting your internships in early, so that's something to look out for. And, you can reach out to me or Matt or Tara, any of the people involved in Centercourt, if that's something that's really interesting in you. And a couple of new things we have going on are we have weekly yoga. Big yoga fan myself, starting on Wednesday. And so it's 9th grade and older on Mondays, and 8th grade and younger on Wednesdays. And so there are 3. So Mondays and Wednesdays at 3. So just kind of looking to expand our offerings. We're really, we talk a lot about how we can create a program here that can serve, you know, the Centercourt family. So super excited and happy to have Jay, you know, talk to everybody, and, you know, just trying to continue to build the offerings that we have. And I think we're very proud of what we've done so far, and excited about the future. So Jay, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks
Be
for having me.
well and healthy, and everyone else. Hope your families are well. And if we can do anything to help you in the summer or otherwise, please reach out. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks everyone for coming.
See you later.